pharmaceutics part. So today we have a very interesting topic which is called as rheology, which is interesting because it is a very conceptual topic. And when I say conceptual, there is a lot of concepts to be understood. Along with being conceptual, it is equally very important when you talk about the GPAT structure of questions, because in every paper there is one or two questions that comes from this chapter. Why this is so important? Because in industry, when most of us, after we graduate, after your BPharm, you might do masters. After masters, you might get into the industry. So this particular topic of rheology comes into play in every aspect of our future pharmacy. So with this, we start with this a very interesting topic of rheology, and I encourage all the students to please ask questions so that we will have a two-way conversation. So whenever you have questions, you can put it up on the chat box, and when I'm asking you an oral question, you might unmute yourself for that period to answer to me and then mute yourselves back. Okay, so now what is rheology? What can you see in the picture that is alongside? If you see, the most left hand side test tube has something which is a very liquidy water kind of a thing, and as you proceed to right hand side, it becomes thicker and thicker and thicker, and there comes a point, the fourth test tube, where there is no flow of the liquid. That is, it has gelled, or it is a semi-solid or a solid kind of a material. So what exactly is rheology and what does this picture depict is what we are going to see in the coming slides. So rheology basically means, it comes from a Greek word. Rheo means to flow and logos means science. That means the science of study of flowability of material. This is called rheology. Now in this subject, I want all the students to pay attention to every sentence that I'm talking, because this topic is so important that every line could be one of your GPAT questions. Like this first question could be, what is the definition of rheology? Or what is the study science of flowing of materials called? And one of the options would be rheology. So just 1 hour, be patient and give your complete attention to me. Now, rheology is nothing but it is related to flow of liquids. And when it comes to solid, it is related with deformation of solids. Solids cannot flow, right? So it is related to deformation of solids. Now, viscosity itself, as we know, that viscosity is an expression of resistance of fluid to flow. मतलब अगर आप पानी को compare करोगे honey के साथ, how viscous is water? You will say that water has very low viscosity. But same चीज अगर आपको honey के बारे में बोलना है, तो आप honey को क्या बोलोगे? Honey is more viscous as compared to water. That means the resistance of honey to flow. अगर आप डाबर के बॉटल को इन्वर्ट करोगे तो आपको थोड़ी देर रुकना पड़ता है. So the resistance of the fluid to flow from a honey bottle as compared to water bottle. So this is viscosity. Obviously, higher the viscosity of honey, greater is the resistance to flow. And this rheology, how is it important to us? Pharmaceutics या pharmacy में ये कैसे help करता है? Rheology is helpful, extremely helpful when it comes to the study of paints, cosmetics, pharmaceuticals such as emulsion, paste, cream, toothpaste, tablet coating. So if you see these applications, rheology almost comes everywhere. And that is why I say rheology is a very interesting and a very important concept. Now, what are the applications of rheology? Rheology कहाँ पे use होता है? One thing is, अगर आपका formulation fluid है, या formulation semi-solid है, या solid है, all three formulations can widely affect the patient acceptability. For example, अगर मैंने एक tube of ointment लिया और ointment मैंने tube से निकाला और वो बहुत liquidy है, like emulsion या calamine lotion जैसा ointment है, और मैंने लगाया, तो वो मेरे स्किन पे रहने नहीं वाला है, because it is a fluidy liquid, right? It will flow away. So as a patient, what I will think is, इतना गंदा ointment कैसे कोई कंपनी बना सकता है, और I will discard it, I will not use it. So whether it is in a fluid state or a semi-solid state or a solid state, it is completely up to the formulator how to formulate it and how to increase the patient acceptability. Similarly, physical stability. अगर आपका सेम ड्रग का फॉर्मुलेशन अगर लिक्विड फॉर्म में है, say in terms of oral solution and in terms of oral tablet, what are these? These are differences in physical form. One is an oral liquid, one is an oral suspension, and one is an oral tablet. So all three drastically affect the physical stability of the drug. Also therapeutic efficacy. अभी हमको पता है कि oral solution has more bioavailability, more absorption rate as compared to oral tablet, as compared to any oral solids. So rheology, that is whether it is a very thin solution in the form of solution or it is a suspension or it is a orally disintegrating tablet, अगर उसका forms are different, that is rheology is different, it will drastically affect the therapeutic efficacy of the drug. Now, where are these used? They are used in the pharmaceutical industry in terms of dispensing and mixing. अगर आपको weigh करना है, अगर आपको weighing में problem नहीं चाहिए, तो you must know that what is its viscosity. Viscosity के हिसाब से आप appropriate measures लोगे. अगर आपको पानी weigh करना है, तो आप क्या करोगे? Beaker में you can weigh water. बट अगर आपको सेम चीज एक विस्कस सॉल्यूशन आपको अगर वे करना है, तो यू हैव टू टेक अप्रोप्रिएट मेजर्स. अगर सपोज बहुत विस्कस सी मटेरियल है, आपको कंटिन्यूअस मिक्सिंग देते रहना पड़ेगा ताकि इट इज यूनिफॉर्म. सो फर्स्ट एंड फॉरमोस्ट वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट एप्लीकेशन इज डिस्पेंसिंग एंड मिक्सिंग, बिकॉज मिक्सिंग एंड डिस्पेंसिंग हेवीली डिपेंड्स ऑन द विस्कोसिटी ऑफ द सॉल्यूशन. सेकेंड is packing of pharmaceuticals into containers. अगर हम अभी हमने फार्मा एप्टीट्यूड के एक लेक्चर में ओरल लिक्विड्स के बारे में पढ़ा. ओरल लिक्विड्स का मेन इंपॉर्टेंट लास्ट पार्ट ऑफ द फॉर्मुलेशन इज व्हाट? पैकेजिंग इनटू फार्मास्यूटिकल्स. तो अगर हमको पैकिंग करना है, इट इज नो मोर द मैनुअल मेथड, इट इज ऑल मैकेनाइज्ड मेथड. तो अगर आपका विस्कोसिटी जिस हिसाब से है, उस हिसाब से अपने को लिक्विड फिलिंग मशीन्स लगेंगे. So packing of pharmaceuticals into containers is also a very important concept. Third application of rheology is removal from the container. Now if I'm talking about oral suspension, oral suspension में क्या लिखा जाता है? Shake well before use. Now why is that indication given? That is because if you shake well before use, the rheology of that suspension changes. And when I mean that it changes, जो सस्पेंडेड पार्टिकल्स है वो यूनिफॉर्मली डिस्ट्रीब्यूट होते हैं आपके पूरे लिक्विड में, एंड फिर आप जब स्पून में लेते हो यू विल गेट यूनिफॉर्म कंटेंट यूनिफॉर्मिटी, या पर डोसेज आपको यूनिफॉर्म डोज मिलेगा, विच इज कॉल्ड एज डोज रिप्रोड्यूसिबिलिटी. सो दिस इज इंपॉर्टेंट इन रिमूवल प्रायर टू यूज. द फोर्थ इंपॉर्टेंट कॉन्सेप्ट इज सिरिंजेबिलिटी, मीनिंग अगर आपका प्रेपरेशन बहुत विस्कस रहा, तो आप अगर आपको आईवी इंजेक्शन या आईएम इंजेक्शन देना है, इंट्रामस्कुलर या सबक्यूटेनियस, so it has to pass through the syringe, right? syringe का होल कितना छोटा रहता है. So you have to also ensure that this rheology applications doesn't affect the syringeability. And the last use is extrusion from tubes, as it contains in ointments and gels. अगर हम आपने डाइक्लोफिनेक जेल देखा है, तो डाइक्लोफिनेक जेल कितने आसानी से ट्यूब से निकल जाता है. This is extrusion from tubes. अब हम हर एक का एग्जाम्पल देने वाले हैं in the coming slides. Now, different pharmaceuticals materials, or in general different materials, are classified as one of the two types. One, it either is classified as Newtonian material, or second, it is classified as non-Newtonian material. तो हमारे पास जितने भी materials है, right from polymers, right from excipients dissolved or dispersed in water, और हमारे जो formulations है like creams, paste, toothpaste, ointments, सारी चीजें we can classify based on its rheology into two categories. One is Newtonian and the second is non-Newtonian. And all of these depend on whether it follows the Newton's law of flow or no. तो अगर वो मटेरियल न्यूटन्स लॉ ऑफ फ्लो फॉलो करता है, then it is classified as Newtonian material. अगर वो न्यूटन्स लॉ ऑफ फ्लो नहीं फॉलो करता है, then it is classified as non-Newtonian material. Now, what is this Newton's law of flow? Let's get into understanding of what is this. So, Newton's law of flow is nothing but, suppose you have a liquid. This is your entire liquid, and this liquid is divided into different stacks. अभी हम पेपर का रीम कैसे रखते हैं, प्रिंटर के पेपर्स हम कैसे स्टैक में रखते हैं, ऐसा वो इमेजिन करना कि आपका लिक्विड है. That liquid in one container, imagine that liquid is water, and in second container, imagine that liquid is honey. So now you imagine two containers which has different parts of water and which has different parts of honey. So what does this Newton's law of flow say? That the force per unit area, that is the shear stress that you apply. Stress आप क्यों apply करोगे? आपको the topmost layer of वो stack है, वो आपको move करना है, और वो move करने में आपको कितना stress लगता है, कितना pressure लगता है. So obviously, अगर आपको पानी का ऊपर का layer move करना है, it is going to be much easier than when you are compared it to moving with the uppermost layer of honey. Do you understand this concept? Like अगर हम पानी को मूव कर रहे हैं और सेम चीज हम हनी को मूव कर रहे हैं, obviously my force per unit area for water, that is the shear stress for water, is going to be less as compared to that of the honey. Now obviously, greater the viscosity, greater is the F by A required to produce a rate of shear. That means if I am applying a pressure, that means this is going to move from its initial point. Initially your stack of water or stack of honey was straight, right? अगर मैं उसको pressure लगाने वाली हूँ, there is going to be some movement in this direction, and this rate of movement is called the rate of shear. So obviously, if I'm going to apply same pressure, if I'm going to apply the same force per unit area, water is going to move more as compared to honey. This is because honey has more viscosity as compared to water. So in Newton's law of flow, अगर वो Newton's law of flow follow करता है, that means the rate of shear is directly proportional to the shear stress. तो मैंने अगर shear stress of 5 apply किया, the rate of shear is going to be directly proportional. Means मैंने अगर 5 किया तो ये 10 move होता है, अगर मैंने इसको 15 किया तो ये 20 move होगा. That means the rate of shear is directly proportional to the shear stress. So this is what we mean by Newton's law of flow. Now this is a formula. Now in this certain chapter of rheology, we have a lot of formulas, and you have to remember these formulas because these formulas can also form basis of one of your GPAT questions. So what is this formula now? F by A is the force that you're applying, that is the shear stress that you're applying, and dV by dr is the rate of shear. That means kitna wo either starting point se at what rate it has moved. So obviously you have a coefficient of viscosity. So the F by A is equal to, it is called as eta, ETA. So eta dV by dr. And eta is nothing but the coefficient of viscosity, which is simply referred to as viscosity. Now, if you substitute this F by A by F and the dV by dr by G, what formula do you get? Is F is equal to eta G. That means eta is equal to F by G. So your entire viscosity, that is eta, reduces down to a formula, eta is equal to F by G. What is F? It is the shear stress. And what is G? It is the rate of shear. Then we talk about what is the unit of viscosity. Now very easily, if somebody tells you that at this third year of pharmacy, if they tell you what you have to find out the unit of eta, what you will do is you will have to have the unit of force, you will have to have the unit of the rate of shear. And by cancelling, you can find out the unit of eta. So this unit of viscosity is easily given as poise. Poise is the standard unit of viscosity. So if I say my water has one unit of one viscosity, that means I mean that water has one poise of viscosity. And what is it defined as? The shear force that is required to produce a velocity, that is dv by dr, of 1 centimeter by second between two parallel sheets of liquid of the area 1 centimeter square separated by a distance of 1 centimeter. That means all your sheets of water are separated by a distance of 1 centimeter, and the force you are applying to produce a velocity, that is the rate of shear of 1 centimeter per square between two parallel sheets of area 1 centimeter square. This is nothing but the definition of 1 poise. And the units of viscosity, that is poise, are dyne seconds per centimeter square or gram centimeter per second. So these are the two units that you have to remember. Either you can by heart the units, or you can remember by this formula. Now coming up forward, a more convenient unit of viscosity has been made as centipoise. And what is centipoise? 1 centipoise, that is centi is 100. So 1 centipoise is 0.01 poise. That means 1 poise is 100 centipoise. So what is 1 centipoise? Is 0.01 poise. Now, why this conversion is important is because you might get numerical questions in your GPAT. Now, if you get numerical questions, the viscosity that they might have asked you to find out, the options might be in centipoise, but the value that must be given is in poise. So when you're converting and writing into answers, you have to pay attention to the unit. And if you have to pay attention to the unit, you have to remember that 1 centipoise is equal to 0.01 poise. Now I'm just going to throw something at you. I'm going to tell you that at the end of this session, we are going to have a quiz. And the quiz is going to be based on all the concepts that we are discussing now. So please pay attention so that we can have a good quiz time at the end. Now, what is called as fluidity? Fluidity is nothing but the reciprocal of viscosity. So if I say ki it is very viscous, that means the fluidity is very low. Now, I mean, it is common English. What is fluidity? अगर आप पानी को pour करते हो तो बोलते हो पानी बहुत fluid है. और अगर आप same चीज honey को flow करोगे तो बोलेगे कि honey is not fluid. So fluidity is nothing but the reciprocal of viscosity, and fluidity is given by the code word or by the symbol phi. This is called as phi, P-H-I. So Phi, that is phi, is nothing but the inverse of viscosity. That means 1 by eta. Till now, is all the concepts clear, everybody? All the students? You all can just unmute yourself for a particular second and you can tell me if is everything clear till now?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, cool. So now we are moving ahead with the further concepts. Now we come to what are the different properties of certain materials by which you classify them under non-Newtonian or Newtonian. So our first subtopic is Newtonian flow. So Newtonian flow is nothing that it follows the Newton's law of flow. Obviously, if it follows the Newton, the great scientist law, it is perfect. So all the Newtonian materials are known to be perfect materials. Now we will see why they are called as perfect materials. So this Newtonian flow, that means the materials that follow Newton's law. That means how much ever you apply the stress, how much ever shear stress you apply, you are going to get a uniform shear rate. That means your shear stress and shear rate are proportional to each other. And this is your rheogram. What is rheogram? The plot of shear stress versus shear rate is called as rheogram. And this is a rheogram of a Newtonian material. And why is it straight line? Because the shear stress and shear rate are proportional to each other. That means it is directly proportional. So the representative flow curve in which the shear stress and shear rate is plotted. Now, if we talk about absolute viscosities of some Newtonian liquids at a particular temperature, that is 20 degrees Celsius. So the castor oil centipoise is 1000. These are just the general viscosities that has been mentioned. So if you consider water, it has been given as 1.0019 centipoise. Olive oil, obviously, is more viscous and less fluid than water. So it has more this thing. Now, if you compare ethyl alcohol with water, both have similar amount of, practically, both have similar amount of fluidity. So there is hardly a difference of 0.19. So these are the absolute viscosity values of some Newtonian fluids. Now we come to what is kinematic viscosity and what is the definition of kinematic viscosity. Kinematic viscosity is nothing, but it can be determined by dividing your absolute viscosity, that is eta, by the density of the liquid at a specific temperature. That means eta divided by rho, which is the density of a particular temperature, and the unit of kinematic viscosity is Stoke or centistoke. Obviously, 1 stoke is equal to 100 centistoke. Now, this is by general knowledge of pharmacy that we have. Now, this kinematic viscosity is a very important concept. Why? Because when I'm talking about viscosity, I am not taking into consideration the density of the liquid. Now, if I have to consider, we all know the density, the liquid main property is density. If I know water and if I take benzene, both of them have different density. If I take water and if I take oil, both of them have different density. So obviously somebody who made or initiated the concept of kinematic viscosity thought that for a liquid, he has to pay equal respect to the density of the liquid. So when we are talking about kinematic viscosity, that is nothing but eta, that is viscosity, divided by rho. Rho is nothing but the density. And the unit is called Stoke or centistoke. Now remember this because it is a very important concept. Now we have a question that can be one of the probable questions of GPAT. You have been given a solvent, that is acetone, and the viscosity has been mentioned in centipoise and its density is given. So the straightforward question is, what is its kinematic viscosity? Now we just read about kinematic viscosity. It is nothing but the viscosity divided by the density. So that is viscosity divided by the density, which will give you 0.397 as your kinematic viscosity. Now we talk about the relationship between temperature and viscosity. So it's a very easy, even in practically we know that as the temperature increases, the viscosity reduces. So as you heat a solvent, its viscosity reduces. So, and obviously if the viscosity reduces, as the temperature increases, viscosity reduces, and because viscosity reduces, fluidity increases, because viscosity and fluidity are inversely proportional. So this is a graph which is showing a temperature, that is as your temperature increases, your viscosity falls. So there is an inverse proportion between temperature and viscosity. Now we are revising what is Newtonian flow. This is a slide which will give you, if you're at your last day of GPAT preparation, this is going to be one slide which you read, you can know that this is Newtonian flow revision. So what is it? If you see, the rate of shear and shearing stress are directly proportional. A straight line that passes through the origin, indicating that viscosity is constant and is independent of the rate of shear. So how much ever rate of shear you apply, how much ever shear stress you apply, the rate of shear is going to be constant. So even if I'm applying 1 or even if I'm going to apply 10, my rate of shear is constant, and the inverse is called fluidity. So this is how we revise Newtonian flow. Now, obviously, after we talk about the perfect body, after we talk about the perfect fluid, the second thing that we come to is non-Newtonian. Now, what is non-Newtonian? Non-Newtonian, obvious, is like the bad child, like a good perfect child, an imperfect a bad child, who is who is not a bad child, who does not follow the strict protocols. So what is non-Newtonian flow? It definitely does not follow Newton's law of flow. Now, what do you mean by it does not follow Newton's law of flow? That means the shear stress and the shear rate are not proportional to each other. And when I say not proportional, there can be two options. One could be as you apply shear stress, your shear rate could increase, or as you apply shear stress, your shear rate could decrease. This we are going to see in our coming slides. Now, most of our pharmaceuticals exhibit non-Newtonian flow. So that is dispersions like colloidal solutions, emulsions, liquid suspensions, ointments, all of these pharmaceuticals show non-Newtonian flow. That is because the different materials, the different composition of materials behave differently, and under different shear stress, they show different shear rate. Now, these non-Newtonian flow are divided into three types. One is plastic flow, one is pseudoplastic flow, one is dilatant flow. Now, these three are very, very, very important concepts, and pay complete attention to what I am talking line by line. So when we are going to talk about these three subtopics, that is plastic flow, pseudoplastic flow, dilatant flow, then you automatically know that these are non-Newtonian flow and will not form a straight line as we saw in Newtonian flow. So what is plastic flow? Plastic flow are also called as Bingham bodies. Their pet name is called Bingham bodies because the scientist Bingham was the first person to study about plastic flow. Now, what is this? If you see the rate of shear versus shear stress, how was our Newton flow? It was passing through the origin and it was a straight line. But what you see here is it is still a straight line. That means after a particular point, after this particular point, it follows Newtonian flow. That means the rate of shear and shear stress are directly proportional. Now, what is this? This is nothing called as yield value. So, you apply a shear stress, and the plastic, what does the name itself plastic means? You apply suppose I have a plastic comb. If I'm trying to mold it, if I'm trying to break it, gives me a particular resistance, right? So till a particular amount of shear stress I am applying, it will resist me. And after that yield value is reached, if my shear stress exceeds the yield value, it will break the comb. The comb will break into two halves. So that is nothing but the shear stress. And the point at which that comb breaks is called yield value. So in plastic flow, what happens is, there is this straight line does not pass to the origin, but if you extrapolate it to the shear stress axis, it will give you a yield value. So, but up to this shear stress, it will show a plastic type of an activity. That means below this yield value, it will be very rigid. It will be plastic. But once I break this yield value, once my shear stress exceeds this yield value, then it will show a Newtonian law of flow. So the plastic material does not start to move or flow till a yield value is achieved. Now in terms of comb, because it is a solid, I am talking about breaking. But when I am talking about this plastic material, that means we are talking about liquids. So what is that? Breaking in liquids is moving of liquids. So till I don't achieve this yield value, that means my plastic material will not flow. And once my yield value is exceeded, my plastic material will start to flow. So below yield value, the material behaves as elastic. Elastic means it is pushing, it is opposing the shear stress that is adapted to it. So below the yield value, the material behaves elastic. And as per the rheologist, those substances that show a yield value, they are solids. So obviously all solids have a particular, if suppose I'm picking up this mouse and I'm trying to do something to the mouse, this mouse has a particular amount of yield value. So all those substances that show a yield value are called as solids. And those substances that do not show a yield value and immediately start to flow, they are nothing but Newtonian liquids or perfect liquids. Now the slope of plastic flow is called mobility. Like how the slope there was called fluidity, that is the inverse, here it is called mobility. Mobility is inversely proportional to plastic viscosity. So your GPAT question could be, the inverse of viscosity is fluidity. The inverse of plastic viscosity is mobility. So this is something you have to lodge and fix in your end. And how will you come to know? If you know, as soon as this mention plastic flow, this particular graph has to come into your mind. This particular rheogram has to click in your mind. And if this particular rheogram comes into your mind, every concept or anything pertaining to that particular concept will be easy. Now, the examples of plastic flow. are flocculated particles in concentrated suspensions. So why are these flocculated in concentrated suspensions? There is a lot of suspension, right? Lot of solid particles have been suspended. So they act nothing but they act as a plastic. They act as a solid material, that is a plastic. And these particles have certain forces like van der Waals force to keep them bounded. Now, if you keep them bounded, obviously because they are bound, an initial stress has to be applied, right? And that initial stress is nothing but the stress up to the yield value that you are applying. So this is an example of plastic flow, that is concentrated suspensions. And why? What is the reason? This is the reason why they show a yield value. So this concept has to be absolutely clear to you. Now, the yield value is an indicator of the strength of the flocculation. Obviously, the more the yield value you have to apply, the more force you have to apply, the more is the flocculation. That is, more tight van der Waals force they have formed in between each other. And above the yield value, which I already mentioned, above the yield value, since it is a straight line, the system behaves like a Newtonian system. So plastic flow is a modified version of a Newtonian flow, just that it has an initial starting trouble. It has an initial, trouble in moving. And that is why you have to apply shear stress till yield value. And after yield value, after the shear stress exceeds the yield value, it is ready to flow. Now, this is a comparison between a Newtonian flow and a plastic flow. So here in Newtonian flow, we saw the shear stress and shear rate. It passes through the origin and it is a straight line. Here it does not pass through the origin because the liquid does not start flowing immediately. The liquid has a certain opposing pressure and that pressure is up to the yield value. And after the shear stress increases or breaks the yield value, it then converts into a Newtonian flow. So here we are done talking about plastic flow. Now this is the chart. This we will again talk in the last session when we are just revising this. Now the second type of non-Newtonian flow is pseudoplastic flow. What is pseudoplastic flow? Pseudo, the name means fake. Pseudo means artificial. So now we have seen plastic flow. Now we are talking about artificial plastic flow. What is this? Who exhibit them? Liquid dispersions or gums exhibit pseudoplastic flow. Gums like gum acacia, gum tragacanth, when they are dispersed or dissolved in water, they show pseudoplastic flow. They are typically exhibit also by polymers in solution. Now we are going to see the reason why. So you have to remember that polymers in solution show what kind of flow. So you have to know that they show pseudoplastic flow, and we are going to understand the reason why. Now this is a typical rheogram of a pseudoplastic flow. That means the consistency curves begins its origin. That means it has no initial yield value or it has no trouble in flowing immediately because it is not plastic, right? Plastic shows us a little resistance. Here there is no resistance to flow right from the initial shearing stress. But what is important, it is not a straight line. So if it is not a straight line, that means your shear stress and rate of shear are not proportional to each other. That means it has no yield value as in pseudoplastic systems, and the curve is not linear. That means no single viscosity is available for it. Like in the previous two systems, you could have taken a viscosity reading at any shear stress and you could have found out the viscosity. But for systems like pseudoplastic flow and dilatant flow, where your curve is not a straight line, you have to find out the shear stress and shear rate at every viscosity, at every shear stress to find out the viscosity. Now, typically, the viscosity here of the material reduces with an increase in shear. Now, if you can see this, you can see this particular type of graph. That means as your shear stress increases, this is a downward curve, right? So downward curve means inversely proportional. That means as your shear stress increases, your rate of shear reduces that if your rate of shear reduces, that means your viscosity reduces. That means the shearing stress is inversely proportional to the viscosity, and that is pseudoplastic flow. That means if you apply shear, that means the viscosity reduces. So you start with a gel, और अगर आपने gel लिया, gel को आपने suppose shear दिया, and how can you shear gel? Suppose आपने mixing दिया उसको, suppose आपने mixing दिया gel को, and what happens is as your shear stress increases, your rate of shear, that is the rate of movement, increases. So if it increases, that means the viscosity is low. That means the entire system of that particular material thins. If it thins, means the viscosity is very low. This curved rheogram, why is it said that it is shown by the long chain of molecules? That means as your shear increases, the molecules को क्या होता है? Why is this change of material? Why is this change of flow? अगर आपने कोई भी न्यूटोनियन फ्लो को मिक्स किया तो उसका कुछ मॉलिक्यूल्स का प्रॉब्लम नहीं होने वाला है, बट जब हम पॉलीमर्स की बात करते हैं, जब व्हेन वी आर टॉकिंग अबाउट पॉलीमर्स इन वाटर, व्हाट हैपेंस इज जब आप उसको एजिटेशन देते हो या जब आप उसको shear देते हो, क्या होता है? द मॉलिक्यूल्स अलाइन देमसेल्व्स इन द डायरेक्शन ऑफ द फ्लो, और जब वो इन द डायरेक्शन ऑफ द फ्लो अलाइन होता है, दैट मीन्स माई रेट ऑफ shear विल इंक्रीज. मतलब अगर मैंने सेम फोर्स लगाया और ऑब्वियसली सेम फोर्स लगाया, तो माई रेट ऑफ मूवमेंट और रेट ऑफ shear विल बी हाई. दैट मीन्स इफ माई रेट ऑफ shear इज हाई, दैट मीन्स माई विस्कोसिटी इज लो. दैट मीन्स इट इज कॉल्ड एज अ shear thinning system. ना अगर ये मेरा पॉलीमर एट रेस्ट है और अगर मैंने उसको एजिटेशन दिया, दैट मीन्स shear दिया, so the polymers arrange themselves such that they are in the direction of the flow, and if they are in the direction of the flow, obviously my viscosity will reduce. Now pseudoplastic flow is given by the formula F, that is force by area, is equal to eta g. G is the shear rate. Now as the flow becomes non-Newtonian, n value increases. That means there is not a directly proportional. And at n is equal to 1, अगर मेरा n 1 हो गया, that means this flow becomes a Newtonian equation. That means this easily converts into F is equal to eta g. Eta is nothing but 1. So F is directly proportional to g. So that becomes my Newtonian flow. So हमने pseudoplastic flow के बारे में क्या पढ़ा? Pseudoplastic flow is nothing, but it starts at the starting. That means it has no yield value. This curve is not linear. This curve is not straight. तो आपको अगर विस्कोसिटी फाइंड आउट करना है pseudoplastic flow का, तो आपको अलग अलग shear stress में कितना रेट ऑफ shear है, ये आपको फाइंड करके ही विस्कोसिटी फाइंड करना है. थर्ड पार्ट इज इट इज कॉल्ड एज shear thinning systems. Pseudoplastic flows are called as shear thinning systems. That means as the viscosity decreases, the viscosity decreases with increasing rate of shear. अगर आप उसको एजिटेशन दोगे, दैट मीन्स आपका विस्कोसिटी ऑफ द सॉल्यूशन लो होगा, and the apparent viscosity can be found out by the sun. Okay, so this is how we revise pseudoplastic flow. Now the fourth type of flow that we are talking about is dilatant materials. What are dilatant materials? Dilatant materials में आपने इधर क्या देखा है? There is जब आपने pseudoplastic flow देखा, आपका कर्व ऐसे था, तो आपका कर्व ऐसे था, तो हमने क्या बोला कि shear stress is आप shear stress बढ़ाओगे तो viscosity कम होता है, that is they are inversely proportional. But अभी यहाँ पे क्या हो रहा है? यहाँ पे आपका उल्टा दिख रहा है. Okay, this is opposite to the pseudoplastic flow. So here what you have to understand is as the viscosity increases, as the shear stress increases, your viscosity increases because it is an upward arrow. So if you have a lower arrow, you can say that your shear stress is inversely proportional to viscosity. And in the dilatant flow, when you have an upward arrow, your rate of shear is directly, your shear stress is directly proportional to the viscosity. That means if I'm going to give it more agitation, or more shaking, मेरा viscosity increase होने वाला है. And ये कैसे systems में exhibit होता है? Suspensions with a high concentration of liquid generally show dilatant flow. They show increase in resistance when there is increase in shear, and hence they are called as shear thickening systems. Shear thickening systems means as my shear increases, as my force shear stress increases, my system thickens. So pseudoplastic flow was called as shear thinning systems. My dilatant flows are called as shear thickening systems. And so why are they also called as dilatant? Because they increase in volume. और जब वो thicken होता है, they increase in volume, and that is why they are also called as dilatant. Now, this type of flow, as we know, is completely inverse to pseudoplastic flow, which you all will agree with me. And इसका खासियत क्या है कि अगर आप स्ट्रेस को निकालोगे, स्ट्रेस को वापस कम कर दोगे, अगर आप एजिटेशन कर रहे हो, आपका जो लिक्विड है वो जेल हो गया बिकॉज इट थिकन. बट आप जब स्ट्रेस निकाल दोगे, आप जब एजिटेशन बंद कर दोगे, then your flow, then your rheology will come back to the original state. And again, the same formula holds true for dilatant systems. Here the n is always less than 1. जब हमने pseudoplastic flow में देखा कि n is always greater than 1, dilatant flow में my n is always less than 1, and obviously if this n reaches 1, then it becomes directly proportional and it becomes Newtonian equation. So exactly if you are seeing pseudoplastic system and dilatant flow are exact opposite of each other. So if you have to compare the two, you will say that this is a shear thinning system, shear thickening system. यहाँ का curve is like this, यहाँ का curve is like this. यहाँ पे opposite है, मतलब as your shear stress increases, viscosity reduces, shear stress increases, viscosity increases. So it is an exact opposite. Now, why dilatant flow जब आपको पता है, why the processing you have to be very careful in pharmaceutical industry. Why? क्योंकि there is a difference in the volume of the material. और जब वॉल्यूम ऑफ द मटेरियल में डिफरेंस होगा, आपका मिक्सर या आपका जो भी मिक्सर या फिर आपने जो भी ये यूज किया है, मशीनरी यूज किया है, इट विल रिक्वायर केयरफुल कंसिडरेशन बिकॉज वो जैम हो सकता है. अभी शेयर थिनिंग सिस्टम्स में क्या होता है, पतला होता है, तभी मटेरियल पतला होता है, मिक्सिंग को प्रॉब्लम नहीं है. बट अगर आप सोचो कि आप हैंड से मिक्सिंग कर रहे हो और आपको पता ही नहीं कि वो डायलेटेड मटेरियल है, और आप मिक्सिंग कर रहे हो, अचानक वो थिक हो गया. नाउ इंस्ट्रूमेंट में क्या होगा, इंस्ट्रूमेंट का ब्लेड जैम हो जाएगा. एम आई राइट? सिमिलरली वॉल्यूम अगर बढ़ जाएगा, आपने 60% ऑक्यूपेंसी के हिसाब से मिक्सर लिया होगा, बट अचानक अगर वॉल्यूम बढ़ गया और 100% हो गया, then there will be an outburst, right, of the machinery. That is why for dilatant systems, your machinery and equipment have to be carefully selected to avoid breakdown. Now, why do this dilatant flow? What is the reason for this dilatant flow? What is the reason for shear thickening? तो यहाँ पे क्या होता है, लो shear rates पे क्या होता है, लो shear rates पे क्या होता है, particles are closely packed. That means there are minimum voids. मतलब अगर आप ये particles देखोगे, ये particles में क्या होता है, they are closely packed, right? Because they are at rest. तो जो voids है, these voids are filled by the liquids. Liquid means आपका suppose if we are talking about 50% concentrated suspension. तो ये जो particles are particles of the suspended material, and the intermittent जो liquid है, these liquids are nothing but the vehicle. So these vehicles are filled in the voids, and the movement is easy for them because there is a lubrication. Now, as your shear strength increases, आप जब agitation देते हो, आपका system dilate होता है. System क्यों dilate होता है? क्योंकि the particles move apart from each other. And when the particles move apart from each other, the vehicle concentration is less to give it a lubrication. And because there is no lubrication, there is resistance to flow. And because there is resistance to flow, your viscosity increases. So this is the concept of dilatant flow. Now, if we have to revise dilatant flow, we know that this is an upward curve. If it is an upward curve, that means your shear stress is directly proportional to viscosity. As your shear stress increases, as you give more shear, your viscosity increases, and these are called as shear thickening systems. And this type of flow is exactly inverse of pseudoplastic flow. Okay, and one important thing that you have to remember is when the stress is removed, a dilatant system returns to the original state of fluidity because thick होता है, और जब आप उसको जब आप shear stress निकाल देते हो, these particles again come back to this original state, and when they come back to the original state, the lubrication fills into the voids and it is at rest. So now these are what we have covered with the different types of flow. Now, after all these different types of flow that follows Newtonian or non-Newtonian flow, we have just one very important concept that we are talking about, thixotropy. Now, आपने पढ़ा भी रहेगा कि आपका जो ointment है या फिर solution है या फिर suspension है, they follow thixotropic flow. What is meant by thixotropy? Thixotropy is nothing but अगर आपका sol है, sol means it is a solution, it is a suspension. Sol is anything that is in liquid state. But उसको अगर आप shear stress देते हो, they form gel like consistency. And जब आप वो gel को stand पे रखते हो, when you remove the shear, it again converts to sol. So what kind of flow am I talking about here? This exact thixotropy is nothing but what we have seen in dilatant flow. So thixotropy is a type of dilatant flow. Okay, so अगर हम sol लेते हैं, वो sol को हमने agitation दिया, वो sol को हमने shear stress दिया, then it forms networks, it forms a gel-like consistency. And अगर ये gel-like consistency को हमने standing पे रखा तो क्या हुआ? Sol form हुआ. Sol is nothing but the solution state. So thixotropy is nothing but a time-dependent shear thinning property. Means time-dependent shear thinning property. Means यहाँ पे आप time नहीं दे रहे हो, यहाँ पे आप stress दे रहे हो. So it is a stress-dependent shear thickening property. And यहाँ पे आप time दे रहे हो. Means it is standing. Then you are not applying anything else. You are only allowing it to stand. So it is a time-dependent shear thinning property. So there is a difference, stress-induced shear thickening property, or it is time-dependent shear thinning property. Okay. So now, if if you want to join us for the session for further pharma aptitude sessions, we will continue with the remaining lecture of rheology. But before going quickly, I would like to introduce you to what kind of GPAT questions are generally asked. So with this, I would like to, since I have covered one important topic of rheology, the starting part of rheology, I have tried to cover the different types of flows, which is very important, and what is the kind of GPAT questions that are expected. So what are the different kinds of GPAT questions that are accepted is, which of the following is not a rheological property? And these would be your 4 options. So now you can, pick up your answer in mind. I'm going to pause here for 30 seconds. So, I think we do not have the time to discuss this, but because we have already overshot the lecture. So pick out the right answer, and after 30 seconds, I'm going to the next slide, which is going to tell you the right answer. So which of the following is not a rheological property? Obviously, it is surface tension, because fluidity, spreadability, viscosity, all of these cover rheological property. What is rheology defined as? These could be the options. And obviously, we know what is the rheology is nothing but the study of flow properties. अगर आपको अभी ये question आप जब देखते हो, आपको लगेगा कि ये question बहुत easy है. Why? Because we have right now, like half an hour or 1 hour before, we have covered this subject. But when you have the entire GPAT questions together, you will get confused between what is study of particle size. Study of particle size is called micromeritics. तो अगर आपको जब पूरा सुटिक्स फार्मास्यूटिक्स पोर्शन साथ में आता है, तब आपको कंफ्यूजन होगा कि रियोलॉजी क्या था, वेदर इट वाज स्टडी ऑफ पार्टिकल साइज कि माइक्रोमेरिटिक्स था स्टडी ऑफ फ्लो प्रॉपर्टीज. So that is why we at Pharma Aptitude here, We are trying to give you the maximum exposure, maximum subjective as well as practical knowledge to all your concepts. We believe in, clearing your concepts. And if we clear your concepts, it is very obvious that you can answer your GPAT questions very nicely, because these are not subjective, write in brief kind of answers. These are application of your concepts to find an answer. Now, what is the unit of kinematic viscosity? These are the options given. And we saw that kinematic viscosity is nothing but our density taken into picture. So obviously your answer of kinematic viscosity is Stokes or centi-Stokes, as we discussed. Then the fourth GPAT question that I found in a couple of papers are dilatant flows generally exhibited by dash. Now, dilatant flow, we saw that how does this dilatant flow appear? Why does this dilatant flow happen? It is because concentrated solid suspensions, they move apart, and when they move apart, there is insufficient liquid or insufficient vehicle to fill in the parts. So obviously the answer is concentrated solid suspension. The next question that I've come across in a couple of GPAT questions are pseudoplastic flow is generally exhibited by dash. We've discussed all this in the previous slide. So see, what is pseudoplastic flow? It is a shear thinning system, and shear thinning systems किस में दिखता है? Solutions of gums and mucilages or solutions of polymers. Now, what is the unit of relative viscosity? Relative viscosity is nothing but okay, so this I'm going to cover in the next session when we are trying to identify what are the different types of instruments that we use to identify viscosity, and usme this concept of relative viscosity comes. And what is the unit of viscosity? We saw that it can be given as poise or it can be given as centipoise, and it is all of the above. So with this, I would like to